Can you specifically detail what you mean by get control of the game, just to be in your words?
Get control of the game is call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Right, and consistently call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor.
The truth is finally out, and it's louder than ever. Stephanie White isn't holding back anymore because the WNBA's silence on Caitlin Clark didn't break until the fans forced their hand. It wasn't the brutal fouls, the media uproar, or even Clark's historic rookie run. It was the fans. After weeks of silence, one moment changed everything: the All-Star captain vote. That's when the league finally spoke up, and not out of integrity, but out of necessity. Because Caitlin Clark wasn't just trending, she was dominating. Millions of new viewers, sold-out arenas, skyrocketing engagement. And when the fans made her captain, the WNBA had no choice but to act like they supported her all along.
Wait, JC Sheldon got away with clawing her in the face. Caitlin got teed up for getting clawed in the face. They didn't even call it a common foul. They didn't call it a common foul. They didn't even call it a common foul. Oh my God! They don't care about players. They don't care about players.
But let's rewind. This league let Clark get hit, shoved, and hacked like it was WWE. Refs watched her fly across the floor and did absolutely nothing. Clips of these non-calls flooded social media: shoulder checks, body slams, elbows to the face. And every time, silence from the league. No suspensions, no fines, no protection. While the media danced around the issue, fans were paying attention. And Stephanie White? She saw it too. She saw her own player getting targeted game after game while the WNBA stood by and let it happen. And still, the disrespect was packaged as tough defense, as if Caitlin hadn't already earned her spot.
You can't claw someone in the eye. Eject her. Eject both of them. Eject both of them. So there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Nothing there. JC Sheldon claws her in the eye. Then the two of them get into it, and then Mabry just goes and shoves her onto the ground. Eject both of them. Eject both of them. Eject both of them.
As if breaking attendance records, boosting TV ratings, and setting scoring benchmarks wasn't enough. Even her own bench sometimes looked the other way, but the fans didn't. They rallied, they voted, they made Caitlin Clark a captain. That moment, not a league statement, not a media headline, is what finally forced the WNBA to pretend they care. Stephanie White's actions spoke louder than any scripted PR post. She stood up because someone had to, because the most valuable player in the league was being treated like an afterthought. And if the league won't protect its future, the fans, and maybe now a few brave coaches will.
When I tell you social media is setting the WNBA on fire right now, not in a good way, that's the understatement.
Caitlin didn't need their approval. She already had the people's vote. Something shifted the moment Caitlin Clark was voted All-Star captain. Not on the court, not in the press room, but in the quiet, calculated boardrooms of the WNBA where silence had reigned for weeks as Clark took hit after hit with no protection. Suddenly, the league started speaking, not because they wanted to, but because the fans gave them no choice. Before the All-Star vote, you could count on one thing: Caitlin Clark was on her own. Every game brought fresh elbows, more hip checks, screens that felt like tackles, and the league? Silent. The media? Distracted. Even her own bench? Sometimes frozen. But the fans? They watched everything. They clipped every foul. They counted every time the referees looked away. And then they voted. In record numbers. That's when the WNBA finally flinched. Stephanie White saw what the rest of the league refused to admit.
All right, enough is enough. You know, at some point, the line gets crossed too often where something needs to be done and things need to be corrected. And that is certainly the case with the way things around Caitlin Clark are officiated. This is a constant problem now. You know, it is something that since the beginning, I've kind of like backed off on because physical play is a part of sports.
This wasn't just physical basketball. This was targeted chaos disguised as competition. Clark was being used, marketed as the face of the league while being punished for it in real time. And White wasn't about to stay quiet. She watched Clark get slammed, shoved, and blindsided. She watched officials ignore obvious contact. She watched headlines pretend it wasn't happening. And she knew none of this would change until the people forced the league's hand. That moment came when the All-Star voting results votes dropped. Caitlin Clark, the rookie, was officially named a captain, voted in by the fans. That's when the league started acting like they cared. Suddenly, statements started rolling in. Suddenly, outlets remembered she existed. But where were they before? When she was being thrown to the floor and left to pick herself up alone.
You know, going after a superstar and trying to rough them up a little bit to get in their head is a part of sports. But when it crosses the line, the referees need to do their jobs. They need to do their jobs, blow the whistle, and officiate properly.
It wasn't about basketball, it was about optics. Because Clark didn't just bring talent, she brought transformation. She tripled ticket prices. She filled arenas that used to echo with empty seats. She turned quiet games into must-watch events. And yet, the league waited until the fans told them she was worthy. This isn't just about tough defense. It's about a player being weaponized for marketing, then left unprotected when the spotlight got too hot. Caitlin Clark showed up to play, but the WNBA showed up to profit. They sold her image, her stats, her story, but left her alone when it mattered. The refs missed calls, so obvious you'd think the cameras were off, but they weren't. The whole world was watching, and when fans started asking why nothing was being done.
Watch when Caitlin Clark is trying to create some space. It looked like she just got hit in the eye there.
Ooh, and Marina Mabry, I missed that one, Idona.
Oh, I missed that one too.
The WNBA gave them silence until it couldn't anymore. Stephanie White didn't just see the truth, she lived it. She coached through it. She stood next to a player who got hit more than anyone else on the court and heard the silence louder than any whistle. And still, Clark kept going. She kept scoring. She kept showing up. But even the strongest players need backup. And Clark didn't get that from the league. She got it from the fans. The Caitlin Clark effect wasn't created by the WNBA. It was resisted by it. Every time she rose, the system around her looked for ways to pull her down. On the court, it was fouls. Off the court, it was indifference. And when that didn't work, it was quiet sabotage. No timeouts, no adjusted game plan, no bench protest when she hit the floor, just blank faces and awkward silence.
And Caitlin Clark are talking to the official. They're both going at it saying, hey, oh, there's a little extra right there. Uh-oh.
You could feel the tension, because the truth is, not everyone wanted her there. She didn't climb the ladder. She flew past it. She didn't just arrive. She took over. And for some, that was a threat. The WNBA had spent years trying to grow the game. Slowly, steadily, grinding for visibility. Then Clark came in and shattered every ceiling. Overnight, she became the biggest story the league had ever seen. And instead of protecting her, some players, coaches, and even officials seemed determined to humble her. But that plan backfired. Every shove turned into a viral clip. Every missed call sparked new outrage. Every bruise became another reason for fans to show up and speak out. And when they did, the league scrambled to act like it had always been on her side. That's what Stephanie White exposed, not just the physical targeting, but the calculated neglect. The idea that a generational talent could be punished for her popularity, that a rookie could become the face of a league and then be left to face the consequences of it alone, that only when the votes came in, when the numbers couldn't be denied, did the league pretend to care. Clark was never asking for favoritism. She wasn't begging for soft fouls or coddled treatment. She embraced the physical game. She welcomed the pressure. What she didn't expect was the double standard. Where were the whistles when she got slammed to the ground? Where were the technicals when players charged her? Where were the officials when she was playing dodgeball with shoulders? The answer, nowhere. And when she showed frustration, they told her to adjust. Adjust to what? To being held to a different standard? To being the only one asked to take hits without complaint? To being told she's overhyped while carrying the league on her back? Clark didn't just earn her spot, she redefined it. And that's what some people couldn't handle. They didn't see a teammate. They saw a threat. They didn't see growth. They saw disruption. So they targeted her. And the league watched until the fans said no more, until the votes came in, until Caitlin Clark became all-star captain and the WNBA finally had to stand behind her, not because they wanted to, but because the numbers left them no choice. Stephanie White saw that. She knew the sudden support wasn't real. It was reactive. It was political. It was the league trying trying to catch up to a moment it didn't create. And even now, Clark is still fighting through it, still hitting threes, still drawing crowds, still breaking records, still getting minimal calls while opponents get away with everything short of using folding chairs. This isn't how you treat your star. This isn't how you protect your investment. This isn't leadership. It's survival mode with a press team. Stephanie White's words and actions cut through the noise because they weren't PR spin, they were real, and fans heard her, they saw it, and they're not letting it go. Caitlin Clark isn't just playing basketball, she's carrying the weight of a system that didn't expect her to succeed and wasn't ready for what would happen when she did. The real question isn't why she keeps getting fouled, it's why the league lets it happen, why the silence, why the excuses, why the delay. The silence from the WNBA wasn't just frustrating, it was telling. For weeks, fans watched Caitlin Clark get battered in real time. The footage was undeniable: elbows to the chest, shoulders to the jaw, forearms across the throat, and yet no whistles, no techs, no fines. Every hit was dismissed as part of the game, but when another player so much as flinched, the calls came quick. That's when fans knew it wasn't about physicality, it was about politics. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a rookie, she was a disruption, and for a league that had operated in slow growth mode for years, her arrival felt like a tidal wave. She brought new fans, new money, new expectations, and instead of embracing it, the system hesitated. Referees swallowed their whistles, coaches downplayed her importance, players took liberties they wouldn't dare try against anyone else. And through it all, Caitlin stood tall. She kept scoring, kept showing up, kept drawing sold-out crowds to cities that hadn't cared about the WNBA in decades. Still, the disrespect persisted. The irony? The same media outlets that once accused her of being overhyped started posting photos of her black eye like it was a trophy. They cashed in on the controversy. They pushed narratives they once rejected. Why? Because the fans were watching, because the engagement was too strong to ignore. But none of it came from a place of protection. It came from profit, and Stephanie White saw it all. She watched the patterns, the no-calls, the viral replays, the sudden shift in media tone the moment Clark became impossible to bury, and when the All-Star votes were announced, it confirmed everything. Caitlin Clark wasn't accepted by the system. She was forced into it by the people. They didn't want her to lead. They had no choice. Stephanie White's frustration wasn't just about the hits. It was about the strategy, or lack of it. When Clark got targeted, there was no response from the bench. No timeouts to slow the chaos. No technical fouls in her defense. No signs of visible support. It was as if the game plan was to let it play out, no matter how dangerous it became. And that's when it got personal, because when your star player is being used as a punching bag, and you respond with silence, that's not coaching, that's complicity. Clark wasn't just playing hard basketball. She was surviving an environment designed to break her spirit. The screens turned into collisions. The defense turned into grudges. The game turned into something else entirely. And yet, she never stopped. She kept lacing up, kept delivering under pressure, kept showing fans why they believed in her in the first place. She brought receipts to every court she stepped on, reminders of who she was and what she represented. A new era, a new kind of star, a player who didn't come up through the traditional WNBA mold, one who didn't wait to be handed a spotlight, she built her own. And that's what made her dangerous, because it wasn't just that Caitlin Clark could shoot from the logo, it was that she didn't need permission to take over, and in a league that prided itself on hierarchy, that was a problem. The league wanted to grow, but on its terms. Clark changed that. She brought in fans who'd never watched a WNBA game in their lives. She made headlines that couldn't be ignored. She disrupted the order of things, and the backlash was swift. They said she needed to earn it. She did. They said she wasn't ready. She proved them wrong. They said she had to adjust. And she did all while being targeted in ways no other player was. Still, the narrative twisted. Critics claimed she was soft, overrated, a product of media hype, but her stats told a different story. So did the record-breaking crowds, the sold-out arenas, the historic engagement levels. No rookie in recent memory had done what she was doing, and yet she got treated like she didn't belong until the fans stepped in. The All-Star Captaincy was more than a title. It was a statement. It told the league, we see what's happening, and we're not okay with it. It was the people forcing the WNBA to confront its own bias, to recognize the value of a player they'd tried to downplay. to admit, at least publicly, that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie, she was a movement. And that's what Stephanie White underscored with her actions. She didn't need a press conference to say it. Her coaching revealed it. Her rotations, her defensive adjustments, her refusal to let the league dictate how Clark would be used. White didn't just protect her player, she protected the integrity of the game. Because if the WNBA wants to grow, it can't punish the very stars that make that growth possible. It can't celebrate Clark's ticket sales while ignoring the bruises it took to earn them. It can't praise her marketing impact while leaving her exposed on the court. That contradiction is what this all-star vote revealed.
It showed the disconnect between what fans see and what the league pretends not to. It exposed the gap between Clark's real influence and the support she receives. It proved, once and for all, that this isn't just about basketball, it's about control. And Caitlin Clark broke that control wide open. She didn't follow the traditional path. She didn't wait her turn. She forced her way into the spotlight by being undeniable. And when that made people uncomfortable, they responded with resistance. But resistance doesn't stop momentum. Every foul made her more famous. Every no call turned into content. Every cheap shot was another clip shared by millions. And now the WNBA has a decision to make. Will they embrace the future or try to slow it down? Because Caitlin Clark isn't just playing for a team. She's playing for a generation of fans who see through the noise, who know what's fair and what isn't, who watched her rise and decided she wasn't going to be ignored. Not this time, not after everything she's given the game, and certainly not after the fans made their voices heard louder than any whistle. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from not knowing what to say. It comes from choosing not to speak. That's the silence the WNBA wore like a uniform when Caitlin Clark got shoved to the floor for the 10th time in a game, when she got hit without a call, when highlight reels turned into hospital tapes, when the world watched it happen and the league said nothing. But the fans weren't silent. They saw every foul. They replayed every missed whistle. They remembered every time the camera zoomed in on Clark brushing herself off while her teammates stood still. They watched her get back up again and again, and they realized something the league was too afraid to say out loud. Caitlin Clark is carrying this league on her back, and if they won't protect her, the fans will. That's why the All-Star vote hit so hard, because it wasn't just a popularity contest. It was a warning. It was a loud collective response to weeks of denial. The fans weren't voting for a player. They were sending a message to the WNBA. You didn't build this. We did. It was the kind of moment that forces people to pick a side. Stephanie White picked hers a long time ago. She's the coach who stopped waiting for league-wide accountability, the one who didn't need press conferences or social media trends to act. She saw through the spin, past the box scores, and into the heart of what was really happening. That Clark wasn't just being guarded, she was being hunted by frustrated veterans who resented her spotlight, by referees who seemed allergic to blowing the whistle in her favor, and by a system that pretended everything was fine while she limped off the floor with another bruise. The most dangerous part? It was all wrapped in a narrative of tough love. Like this was a rite of passage, like Clark had to prove herself by enduring more punishment than anyone else. But let's be honest, this wasn't hazing, it was sabotage, and it didn't work. Because the more they tried to bury her, the higher she climbed. She didn't just survive the hits, she made them part of the story. She turned fouls into fuel. She turned silence into momentum. And she did it all while smiling at the fans, hitting logo threes, and giving the league its biggest season in years. Meanwhile, Coach White kept building the only support system Clark had, because the WNBA sure wasn't doing it. When Clark was being triple-teamed, White adjusted. When the refs missed another obvious call, White kept her steady. When the media twisted the story, White didn't flinch, because deep down, she understood this isn't just basketball anymore. This is about what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. Does it want to be the kind of place that eats its young stars alive? That downplays generational talent because it arrived too fast, too loud, and without permission? Or does it want to evolve? Because Caitlin Clark didn't come into the league quietly. She arrived like a storm, and storms don't wait for permission. They change everything. She didn't ask to be the face of the WNBA. The league made her that. The media made her that. The fans, most of all, made her that. And now that she is, she deserves the respect that comes with it. Not fake support after the fact. Not carefully crafted statements only after the all-star votes are in. Not performative concern when clips go viral. Real support. Whistles when she's fouled. Protection from dangerous play. Fair officiating. And a league that doesn't wait until fans drag them into doing the right thing. Because this story isn't going away. Not while Clark keeps racking up points. Not while she keeps breaking records. Not while she keeps elevating the game for everyone around her. even those who want to see her fail. And Stephanie White knows it. That's why her actions hit so hard, because she's not just coaching basketball, she's managing a political minefield. She's trying to win games while navigating the constant distractions of league bias, uneven treatment, and national media frenzy. She's doing what the WNBA leadership should have done weeks ago, putting her player first. Meanwhile, Clark just keeps showing the world who she is, the same girl who carried Iowa to historic heights. The same rookie breaking assists and scoring records like it's nothing. The same athlete taking harder hits than most players have in a decade and still showing up the next night like she's made of steel. But even steel can break if you don't protect it. That's the message the WNBA needs to hear. Because it's not just about Caitlin anymore. It's about every future rookie who might come into the league with hype and skill. Will they be welcomed or tested until they collapse? The way you treat your brightest star says everything about your values. And right now, the message has been ugly. Use her for views, use her for revenue, but don't protect her, don't defend her, don't respect her, until the fans force you to. That's what Stephanie White exposed. Not with a quote, but with action. She reminded everyone that backing your player isn't optional, it's the job. And maybe now, after Clark's captaincy, after weeks of public pressure, after headline after headline about missed calls and dirty plays, maybe the WNBA will finally catch up to the moment it created. Because this isn't about physicality, it's not about earning respect, it's not even about basketball anymore. It's about doing right by the player who just gave you your biggest season yet. Caitlin Clark has proven everything she needs to. Now it's the WNBA's turn. Let's see if they can handle it.